Alrighty. So we're gonna go ahead and go live. And we are officially live. We'll go ahead and wait for a couple people to join us. All right.
Just real quick, since we're kind of waiting for people to filter in, did
Yeah.
either of you follow or know Sean Steadfast, booktuber?
No.
Okay.
I heard that he passed away though.
Yeah.
Right.
That's what I was asking. So
Yeah. Hi, everyone. So happy that you are here joining us for our live on 11/22/63. Welcome. Make sure you say hi in the chat so that we know you're here and you're ready to discuss with us. 11/22/63. And yeah, it's going to be a fun discussion. We'll go ahead and wait a little bit for more people to join, but yeah, we can keep chit-chatting, just us for a little bit.
For sure. Yeah, I actually finished it back in November, so it's stuck with me though. It's one of those that's
definitely one of my probably top 5 reads of last year.
Oh really? Wow. Yeah, it made my top 10 too, for sure.
Sure. Well, it's gonna make my top 10 of this year because I officially finished it.
She kept telling me, like, as the year was ending, she was getting close to the end, and she was like, "But I want it to be a 2026 best read." I was like,
"Yeah,
yeah." I was so torn. I was like, "Oh my gosh, do I push to finish in 2025, or do I, take my time with it and let it ride into,
I think it's better that you took your time with it and read at your own pace and just enjoy it. And
yeah,
well, I just hit a spot where I couldn't not read it.
Yeah.
Like, with a lot of Stephen King books, I'll get to like, it's part 2 or part 3. Because since it's just a beefy book, I'll stop. I'll read a couple quick reads, and then I'll jump back into Stephen King. I didn't do that with this. I think I made a pause toward the beginning, and then about the last 75% of the book was just straight through. I'm finishing this. He's got me.
Yeah.
It's so
I
true.
found it really easy to read too. Like for, as intimidating as a big book like this can be, it's like, it's no different really than reading 300-page books. You're just in the same story for longer, right? So I found it very readable.
Yeah, I mean, today when I was prepping for this, I was like, man, I don't remember it being this long. Like, in my head, the story was long, but at the same time, I'm like, this is long. Like, no wonder it took us so long to finish.
This is one of those books where it was like maybe 1-2 o'clock in the morning. I had like 100 pages left to go, and I'm like, strap in, we're done, we're going. It's finish line or nothing at this point.
Yes, for sure. We do have a couple people joining us. So hi, Brooke. Welcome. Brooke from Illinois is here.
Hi.
Welcome. So happy that you are here. New follower here. I read 11/22/63 when it originally came out. Favorite
ever. Wow.
Yay.
And possibly my favorite book ever. Oh my gosh, Melanie, that's awesome. This is definitely making a lot of my lists. Like I'm telling you now, like this will be a part of my list.
I'm curious as what makes it one of her favorite books ever.
Yeah,
I have a couple theories about people that like this book. You're either at the age where you've had a personal connection with the JFK, or your parents have had a JFK, or you're just a Stephen King fan, or for some reason in 2011 this book just resonated different than any other book that he had written previously had. So
is that when this came out, 2011?
Yes.
Yeah. Which I was thinking of that the whole time. Like I can see why 2011 is when he decided to, because I know he had other drafts of this before. I don't know if you guys did a little bit of research or you heard that, but he had done some drafts and left it for years, and then in 2011 he picked it back up to
he
writing.
originally wanted to do the story in the early 70s, but realized at that point in his career the scope of research that he would have required was beyond him.
Yeah.
So I mean, he actually hired a researcher to help him, or it's actually, if I remember, actually somebody he uses normally.
Yeah.
But his research for this book was meticulous. I mean, we're talking Warren Commission level research.
Yeah, for sure. And I learned a lot being a non-American person. American history, like this particular event, it was a worldwide known that everyone knows about, but like the details of Oswald and his Russian wife, like I had no idea about any of that stuff, and
Correct.
that was interesting. Is that so much of her
It's
story?
funny because, yeah, a lot of that research, like I want to believe it's true, right? And
Yeah.
I don't necessarily want to look into it, right? Like, did they live at that address? You know, did they have a downstairs neighbor that had that name? Like, part of me, like the JFK assassination happened before I was born, right? So to me, it's always been history. Right? I didn't live through it.
Yeah.
And I'm curious. Like, part of me is curious to find out how much of it is real. But if I guess I find out. I feel like I find out if it really is real, I'll like the book a lot more, right? Because I'll be like, wow, this is like accurate research. But if it's made up, then I'm gonna be like, oh man. So I don't know. I kind of want to look it up, but I don't.
Yeah.
So.
I will dispel your fears right now because to me, it's one of the most impressive aspects of this book because the JFK assassination is steeped with so many conspiracy theories.
Mm-hmm.
Stephen King's research was meticulous. He never, in my opinion, from what I've read about JFK and reading this book, he never tiptoes into any conspiracies. Everything that he uses in the JFK in this book can be traced to fact in situations. Now,
Awesome.
like neighbors' names, downstairs neighbors, but the addresses are the same. It's I would say 100% accurate without tiptoeing into conspiracy theories. He used the basic foundation of what we knew about Oswald, what we knew about his wife, what we knew about some of the other players in this, to include the FBI guy that had to burn the note toward the end of the book. True story.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
it is historically accurate and it's damn impressive.
Awesome. Let me get caught up a little bit. Hi, Miriam. Miriam says, this is my favorite Stephen King book. Can't wait to hear your thoughts. Miriam is one of my Instagram friends, and she's also on the Discord with us. I'm so happy you're here. And you're also from Illinois. Oh my gosh, 2 Illinois people.
My aunt lives in Illinois.
There you go.
That's
Stephen
the connection.
Yeah.
Okay, so Melanie was 2 months old when the JFK assassination happened. So interesting. Yeah, because we were asking about those things. Hello, neighbor.
I feel so weird because I have no books behind me. I'm like the odd man out.
They're all in here. I'm a constant reader from way back. Stephen King is my favorite author. I was 2 months old when JFK was assassinated. Got it. Awesome. Let us know what your favorite. I know I'm going to ask that later on, but what are some other of your books, Stephen King books that you love? Let us know. I found the story fascinating because if you had the opportunity, would you go back in time to save Kennedy? I love this book. I really love the writing style. Yeah, so much to like, right? I mean, it's awesome.
For sure. And straight ahead. I had tried reading it before a few years ago, but I couldn't get into it. I think it was just the fact of I knew it'd be a long time reading the same story, but it is very readable and it just hooked me right in right away. Like it, I really like Jake to start off with. He was,
All right, so we are getting a little bit into the book already. So before we do that, I do want to have my guests introduce themselves, tell you a little bit about themselves, why they're here, their channels, do a little bit of promo. If you're not following them, make sure you're doing that. So you guys can go ahead and do that.
Should I go? Okay.
Sure.
My name is Michelle. My channel is called Literary Me. I mostly read a lot of literary fiction, but I like to read a variety of everything, all different types of books and genres, and I'll read anything basically. And I did create my YouTube channel just so I could talk to like-minded readers and talk about books on my channel. So there you go.
Great. D?
My name is D. I have a channel. I'm not active on it, called The Reading Room. I started my booktube channel to meet people to talk about books, and I'm doing that when I do buddy reads with Isabel and Michelle and Ariel. So, I mean, I'm happy just with that. So,
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, my name is Ariel, and I don't have a YouTube channel. I don't have an Instagram. I'm not a booktuber. I'm barely a reader. I mean, I read fantasy. I read military thrillers and like Jack Reacher novels and things like that from my own pleasure. But I am married to my favorite YouTuber, so that makes me qualified to be here.
Not
There we go.
me.
Yes.
Well, I don't know
Yes.
if on our square, I'm not sure. You're over here on my square, so I'm not really sure. Yeah, I guess I'm like the behind the scenes channel producer, so I help her with the lighting and stuff, and that makes me qualified.
There you go.
Awesome. Well, this was so much fun reading with you guys. So I've set up a couple of questions that can kind of guide us. We might get to a lot of them, we might not. We'll jump around, and I will be monitoring the comments as well. But as usual, whenever we do a buddy read or we talk about a book, I like to start with like a basic summary of 11/22/63 for those who are interested and maybe haven't read it. And then, of course, later on in our live, we'll move on to more spoilery content. So I'll have you guys kind of give us a summary. Someone can start off, and then someone else can maybe piggyback on that and give us a summary of 11/22/63.
Sure. Okay. Well, I can start off since
Yeah.
I started talking about Mr.
You
Jake.
recommended it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Right. So in this book, we're following a character named Jake Epping. He is a high school teacher, and it's the end of the school year, and he has recently divorced his wife, who had a drinking problem. She was an alcoholic, and he's kind of at odds with his life. He's not dissatisfied, but he's not entirely happy either. And so one day he encounters this janitor at the school who he's a well-known guy that he's known for years. And he's been helping to tutor him to help him get his high school diploma. That's been his goal. He's never had much of an education, and he's wanted to get his GED, and Jake helps him to achieve that goal. So I'll let somebody else take over from me here. If Dee, you want to continue, or I don't know how much detail to give, but
So, in the reason that that character, the janitor, is so important, because I love the first line of this book is I'm not what you would know as a crying man, but he talks about how the story of the janitor Harry basically is what launched him into this adventure of going back. So Harry, his family and his mother were killed by their father. Harry survived and was crippled. He writes a paper about it, and it moves Jake Epping. And then what happens is the story moves to the owner of a diner named Al. And one night, Jake's there. He's having dinner. Al looks great. He's fine. The next day he goes there, and Al looks horrible. Like he's aged like that. And the way Stephen King draws attention to it's very interesting. So basically what Al reveals to Jake by making him go through a portal in his diner that takes him back to, I don't remember the date, but it's September 1958. You go through the portal, you're in 1958 on that day at the exact same time, every time you go through the portal. No matter how long you spend in the portal, when you go back, only 2 minutes in the real world has passed. And those important time travel rules come into play in the novel. So the reason Al is showing him Jake this is because Al is dying of cancer, and Al believes that this portal that opens in 1958 is an opportunity to change, to make the world a better place by stopping the assassination of JFK, which would hopefully stop the Vietnam War. And there's a domino effect that Al explains to Jake. So Jake decides to do it, but he wants to do an experiment in which he wants to go through the portal first to help Harry, the janitor, to prevent his family from being killed and from him being crippled. So for this, he goes up to Derry. Now, had you told me this was not a Stephen King book, I would have said, yes, it is, because he's in Derry. But had he not used Derry, if he'd used, like, I don't know, someplace in Alabama, I don't know if I would have guessed this was a Stephen King book till toward the end. That's kind of what's so great about this book. So, but he goes up to Derry. He prevents, he doesn't prevent everybody from getting killed. Only one person gets killed, and Harry the janitor, is fine. So he returns back to his time, which is it 2009, 2011 in the book? Was there present day?
I think, yeah, that was.
It was present day from when he wrote it. Yeah.
So he returns as kind of an experiment, and they find out that Harry died in the Vietnam War. Now, at this point, Jake is having second thoughts about wanting to go back and basically make this change, make another change, at which Al forces a hand by committing suicide, so that now Jake feels obligated to go back to 1958 to do this. And this is where he goes back in the second time, and then that's pretty much where the novel takes place. So he goes back to Derry. He handles that situation different. There's another side, smaller story in there when Al went through. One of the ways that he learned about how these rules of the time work was saving a girl that actually got shot in a hunting accident that was paralyzed.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of what you learn by this story is time doesn't want to be changed. If you mess with time, time is going to mess with you by throwing obstacles in your way. Things like engines dropping out of cars, trees where if you need to get up to a road to do something, there's going to be a tree there. And so that's kind of how Al relays. When you're trying to change the past, the more you try, the more the past is going to fight you. So from there, from there, then he now, Jake as George Emerson moves into a life. He moves to Jody, Texas, which is not a real place, I just learned today. Mm-hmm. But Jody, Texas is between Dallas and Fort Worth, which is where he needs to be because his object is to verify that Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone in the assassination of JFK. And then if he did, then he needs to take care of Oswald. And then that's the story of the life that he leads. Because, I mean, you're talking, he goes in 1958. The assassination's not till 1963. So he's got a lot of time that he's got to, be able to make money, surveil Oswald. There's a lot of different things that go into that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I think that's a good start to our summary. Maybe we got this far in on what we've shared. So I'm going to do a little break to get caught up with some of the comments, and then we'll continue with some of our questions. So we have here, I love the idea of going back in time and thinking to myself, would I have done that? Would I have gone and tried to save Kennedy knowing the future? And yeah, I agree with you. I asked myself that, right? Like when I was reading. And I also asked myself, what else would I have changed? Like, what are some things I would, try to make better,
Or would you enjoy that time period like Jake and decide, hey, this is cool. I don't want to go back. I want to stay here.
Right.
I would for sure try. I'd love to go time travel if I had the opportunity. Yeah.
So grateful you guys are all together and we're all sharing this. Thank you for making this possible. No, thank you for being here. Thank you for being here. Hi, Jackie. Thank you for joining us. So
I definitely think this book is a love letter to simpler times of the 50s and the early 60s, kind of before, like right before, getting Vietnam, before this country really started kind of getting torn apart. Yeah. And what was interesting to me is I'm getting so swept in this novel. He goes up to Derry, then he goes down to Florida, and as he's heading over, he stops in the South. And I had made a note of the number of pages in before I even thought of segregation.
Right.
Colored bathrooms, white bathrooms. Right. And it was so weird that I was so swept up into this nostalgia of the 50s, even though I didn't live in the 50s, that it jarred me back into the reality of what was going on.
Yeah.
Similar to how Jake was.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say that's one thing that I thought there would be more of, right? Because I was so far into the book, like Dee says, I was so far into the book before segregation came up or McCarthyism came up or anything, because the 50s was not this wonderful time, right? It's just about as wonderful as every other decade to a certain point. And I always felt like right around the corner, he was going to show us like the dark side of the 50s and the dark side of the 60s, right? Yeah. And there's a lot of darkness in the novel anyway, right? Because of Jake's mission. Jake's mission is murder, right? He's going back in the past for murder. That's why he's there. So I get there's a lot of darkness in that alone. but I thought that at some point we would turn the corner and he would kind of rip the veil off this, howdy doody 50s, and show us, and he never did, which is, it's not a slight against the novel. It's just something I was expecting that never came.
Yeah. I even thought that when he's, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. I talk all the time. Go ahead.
Just like when he's describing like the soda pop, right? Like how sweet the soda was, or that a soda had not tasted like that, to him in years, or like ever in his existence. Like I was like, man, like that must be so cool, coming from our world and then experiencing such pure things, So I do think it was a bit romanticized in certain parts. So I agree with you guys that it was a bit of like a love letter to that decade or that time period,
Yeah, and you can tell Stephen King himself, he could relate. It's like he was describing his own youth, like his own teenage life and stuff. And like on page 270, it's such a beautifully written passage in the book, but it's when he's on his way to Derry, I believe, and he's he's on the road, but it says he stops at that wooded place, like that not the hunting lodge, but that place in the woods, and he goes canoeing, and beautiful summer weather and everything. And it was just such a pleasure to read that one page. I thought, I can see totally why he wouldn't want to leave 1958 or whatever. So, but I don't know why he didn't go more into this other darker aspects, but maybe the only thing I can think of would be that it was already heavy, or for continuity's sake, maybe. I don't know if he didn't want to get too like go in that direction and feel like he could do it justice. I'm not sure.
I think he was trying to remain neutral.
Yeah, I think
because I think if you start painting darker points of this, I mean, to me, the story it's a love story first and foremost. And I think he's already got to balance this thread of the JFK assassination without dipping into conspiracies, sticking to the fact. And I think if you start kind of poking holes in it, he was trying to remain neutral because he wanted the reader. I mean, whether you like JFK or you didn't like JFK back then, you had to appreciate the mission that Jake Epping was on. Jake Epping might not have been a Democrat or Republican. I don't even think that even came up in the book that much. But my guess, or I guess my opinion would be, he had to remain neutral as an author to keep the content flowing without the reader maybe trying to politicize the novel in a political motives.
Yeah.
And I can see it also, right? Like I can see why, even if he had written that part, right? And I'm nowhere near an editor, right? But I could see how the editor would say, like, you don't need these 1,000 words, right? Because he wants to make us, the reader, relate to Jake wanting to stay in the 50s and loving the 50s. If the 50s and 60s were a terrible place, it's easier to justify why he doesn't just come home, right? So I get that part, but I thought there would be more like the Negroes in the woods, right, where they don't have their own bathrooms and stuff. Like that was a really ugly scene, at least for me, right? I was uncomfortable reading it. I was like, oh, this is terrible, and part of me felt like they're maybe, I don't want to say should be, because that's not really what I mean, but I kind of expected there to be some more just peeks behind the curtain that not everything in the 50s was great, but that's my expectation, right? I was kind of expecting that, it never came, so it was a note in my mind. If I wouldn't have come in thinking that, I probably wouldn't have noticed it.
Well, and speaking of character arcs, like, and tying into what you said, he had to have a reason for Jake to want to stay there and not come back, right? So if he would have experienced the darker side of the times there, maybe he wouldn't have wanted to stay. And he'd be like, oh, I'm out of here. Like, this is too much for me to handle. So maybe that's part of it.
And he wants to stay because he's a white guy. Yeah. He wants to stay because he's a white guy.
He wants to, So,
I'm not going back in the 50s and having any success trying to save anybody.
No.
So I mean,
You know what I also liked on that same vein? I feel like also through Jake, Stephen King was trying to, since we're from the future, as he was, right? He kept, I feel like, making excuses through Jake's narrative, like, oh, but that's because, they don't know any better, or that's because I'm in the past, or like, and those are the same things we were thinking, as readers were like, oh my God. And then, so it was nice to see that Jake felt the same way we would have felt had we traveled there, and how he was not judging them because they didn't know any better because they're in the past, you know. So
Right.
I enjoyed that. I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And
that
he
was
had to be relatable to us, right? So, because we don't get a
Correct.
whole lot of Jake's background. We know he's a teacher. We know he
Mhm.
had an alcoholic wife that he's divorced and
right.
not super happy. But I think we learn more about him as we go through his actions in the past and the present rather than his own personal history. So, like, as limited as the information we got about Jake, I was surprised how much I liked him and how much I could relate to him in the book. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I did too. The moment we find out he's an English teacher, I'm like, oh my gosh, like I am automatically connected with him, because I'm an English teacher. So I was like, yes, I understand. And the
Yeah.
reading or the grading of the essays faithfully and all of that, like that resonated with me. And I thought he felt very real. Like I thought he felt very real. So Jackie says, I'm not sure I would want to live in either the past or the present. Instead, maybe I'd like to go visit and then come back. And I think that's everyone's plan, right? When you travel to the past, like your intent is maybe to come back. So, and I love that at moments I felt so compelled by the love story, as Dee was mentioning, that I don't want him to leave, or I wanted him to stay, or I wanted him to maybe come back with someone else,
Yeah.
That's what makes the last scene of the book, which is one of my favorite last scenes ever, so powerful. And I know we're not there yet, but like you said, you're watching this love story unfold, and you kind of know, reading a Stephen King book, it's not going to be all happy kumbaya. At some point, something's going to go wrong, and it goes terribly wrong. But you learn a lot about Jake by the decisions that he makes in the last 20-30 pages of the book.
Yeah. And you know what caught me by surprise? Speaking of romance, he didn't fall in love with who I thought he was going to fall in love with. I was sure, 100% sure. I've made a note here. By page 266, I can envision a romance between Jake and Ellen Dunning, the little sister. Like, did you think? Yeah.
Yes,
totally. I'm like,
I thought the same thing. I remember I walked down the stairs and I ran down, and I from the middle of my stairs, I yelled at Ariel, who was watching TV. I'm like, is it Sadie? Because, and I think I even messed up her name. I was like, is it Sandy? He's like, who the
Sandy. I was
like
it's Ellen.
Sadie.
I thought he was going to be with Ellen for sure. Like that they, when they start looking into things. Yeah.
On a sidebar, the book is so long, right? And it has so many characters that when she comes down, she says, is it Sandy? In my mind, I was like, no, it's not Sandy, it's Sadie. But then I'm thinking, is there a Sandy in the book? Like, did I miss a character? Like, because there's so many of them, right? That I was like, there could have been a Sandy. Is the teacher's name Sandy? Is one of his students named Sandy? Like, it was funny.
Funny,
I was not expecting to hear Lee Harvey Oswald and Kennedy assassination the moment I joined the stream. Well, we're 11/22/63, which is what we're covering. Yeah,
well, see, and that's one of the reasons I initially probably would not have embraced this book. If you're like, oh hey, Stephen King wrote this book about this guy that wants to go change the JFK assassination, I really would have just scoffed. It's just not. I mean, the JFK thing has been done, and it just did not seem like something. Not necessarily worthy, but like, what can Stephen King bring to the JFK assassination? I'd rather go read it or Needful Things or something else. It just did not attract me as a Stephen King novel to read. Even when Michelle recommended it, I was kind of like, okay, I'll read anything. Don't get me wrong, but amazing.
Yeah, I remember when I hauled it, Michelle, and you commented on that video like, hey, I want to read that too. Let's do it. And I was like, oh my God, now I actually have to read it soon.
I know. But you know what? So it's totally, it's the kind of thing you got to really, once you're committed and once you're into it, it goes fast. But like, you really have to be deliberate to read a chunker like this. So I'm glad you guys wanted to too. Like,
it will prove and cement that Stephen King is one of our greatest authors to date. Somebody that is part of a horror genre that's so known for that type of work, that could write something like this that is so impactful, is just beyond impressive, and it made me even more of a Stephen King fan than I thought I could ever be, honestly.
Yeah, the sheer versatility, of his talent and breaking free of any niche.
Yeah.
Or, I mean, this has everything. Like literally, this book.
It's a love story. I mean, to
Yeah.
me, if somebody asked me, "Hey, what kind of book is that?" Oh, it's Stephen King's love. It's a love story written by Stephen King, and people would scoff at me. But and I will say,
Yeah.
anybody that if you talk about Stephen King and someone says, "Oh, he always just writes the same crap," tell them to go read this book and dare come back and say that again, because it will.
I
prove
would
them
even
wrong.
go further and say it's a human story more than like the it's a romance. But if it was just a romance, I wouldn't have been interested.
Yeah.
Like I need more than that to keep me reading. So yeah.
Right.
So
I feel the same way. I wouldn't have read it if it was a romance. I think my path might be a little bit unique because I knew this book existed just because Stephen King is so prolific and you just know when his books come out, right? So I knew this book came out. But I actually had read Fairy Tale first, right? Because I'm more of a fantasy reader, right? So when I was like, oh, Stephen King, Fairy Tale, and I'd want to read The Dark Tower for a long time. So those books are on my radar. So when I read Fairy Tale, I really enjoyed it. And then after I found out that this book had a lot of parallels with Fairy Tale, which it does, right? Just the way the plot kind of develops, right? One of them is fantasy.
The portal,
And that's what got me interested in this, right? Once I realized that they were very kind of similarly structured in terms of stories. And I had already read Fairy Tale and I liked it. And I had started reading The Dark Tower and I really liked it. And those are my only real exposures to Stephen King. So I was like, man, maybe I do want to read that 11/22/63. And when she said, hey, I'm going to read this, I was like, oh, I wanted to read it too. I may as well read it now.
I think it was Michelle who actually invited you to join that day.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Michelle.
The more the merrier.
Look where I am now because of you.
Yeah. Yes. Aren't you glad?
And she only recommended it because it was the November read and it had November in the title.
Just like we read Miranda July in July.
Now
All
I'm
right,
here with
yeah,
no books behind me.
Let's dive a little bit. So we've already talked about how Jake travels to the past with this mission that has been passed down, right, from Al, that he needs to try to do whatever he can to, prevent the JFK assassination, right? So now let's talk a little bit about morality and that kind of a thing. Like, do you feel that Jake had the moral right to try and change the past or change the past? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I'm gonna say yes, just because I don't know. It's such a, you have to just kind of suspend your disbelief and go with it because, that situation isn't something that we'd face in real life. But I think just because he was, trying to change things for the better and, affect a positive change in the world, and he had to act and make decisions, big decisions in quick succession kind of thing. So, I like he had the right to act how he acted. I don't know if he gave any consideration, well, he did give a lot of consideration to the outcome and stuff, but I think he was willing to accept whatever happened, and whether it was good or bad, he would take full responsibility. Mm-hmm. So to me, that makes me say, yeah, why not? I think he did just because he was trying to effect a positive change, and I think he would have accepted whatever happened, right? So, and been accountable. That's just my 2 cents.
He was actually. I mean,
the
way the book ended, he took accountability for the decisions he made.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna say no.
Yeah.
And not to dissent, right? But I thought it was kind of brash for him to think that he could change all of this, right? Mm-hmm. And one of the when Al lays out the timeline, he makes a very convincing argument, right? And I'm gonna say that he would have convinced me, right? Like I would like when he makes that argument, right? If you stop this and that's gonna stop this and that's gonna stop that, I don't want to spoil anything, right? But A is gonna stop B and B is gonna stop C and C is gonna stop D, and after D stopped, then we're gonna live in a better world, right? Mm-hmm. He makes a very convincing argument, and he would have convinced me. I would have jumped through that portal head first, right? But that there's a lot of assumptions there, right? Yeah. That because you stop A, you're gonna stop B, and B is going to stop C. So and you don't know what's gonna happen along the way, right? And obviously it's a novel, right? So things turn out the way the author wants them to turn out. But I feel like the hardship he went through was justified because he he's trying to do this thing that he has no right to do, right? Like, who are we, or who are you, or who am I to change everybody's past, right?
And
You're not
future.
changing your own past, right? Like, if you, to a certain point, like, heaven forbid, right? Like, my mom dies, right? And I want to go back and I want to save my mom for me. That's going to change my life. It's selfish, but I feel like it's a little bit more justified. But you're trying to change the world, and you're trying to mold the world into your view, which to a certain point is what Lee Harvey Oswald was doing, right? So he's trying to change the world into his view. So I mean, he's obviously the protagonist, and I agree with him. I don't want to make it seem like I don't. I agree with him, but I don't think he had the right to do it. It's a wonderful adventure. I really loved it. But it kind of stuck with me, right? Every time a bad thing happened to him, I was like, you kind of brought it on yourself, man. You kind of brought it on yourself. You shouldn't be here.
Yeah, I agree. It kind of begs the question, like, where does it cross the line between the right to do what he did or the responsibility to do what he did?
Sure.
Being given all that power, like the portal, and I can do this. It's enormous, right? And that's where the suspension of disbelief has to come in, because it's like, who gets that opportunity? But like, yeah, I totally get what you're saying, though. I could see that side of it too. Like,
yeah, like to use an analogy that has nothing to do with the book, right? Because I don't want to spoil anything. But like, if one of us could go back and fix the Challenger explosion, right? Say, hey guys, this shuttle's going to explode, right? These 8 or 12 or however many, I'm sorry, I don't know the number, however many astronauts are going to die, right? And they fix that, right? But we don't know what changes were made in aerodynamics because of that explosion, right? What advances were there? I don't know that, but I know enough to know that I don't know, right? So if we stop that and say, hey, your gas line is leaking, then maybe we miss a whole bunch of other stuff, right? It's small-minded, in my opinion,
it's so complicated.
Small-minded to think that this one event is going to create this whole chain reaction that you've lined up, right? This dominoes are going to fall exactly how you think they are. I thought it was a leap.
So then with that you're just saying, do you think that that's why the book stresses that the past is obdurate? Because what needs to happen has to happen, and we should not mess with the past? Like, do we think that's what Stephen King is saying?
I don't think it's necessarily that it needed to happen. It's just what happened.
Yeah.
And, I read a lot of stoicism where you have things that are inside your control and things that you don't control, and you have choices. So we as a species, as people, have made choices, and they have consequences, and we have to live with those. And we don't necessarily get a do-over. We can't go back and like, oh, well, that didn't quite work out. We should kind of go back and fix that. And kind of to tie this to what we were just talking about, at no point when I was reading this did I knew he was going to be successful in stopping the JFK assassination. However, at no point in my mind did I think it was going to end well when he went back to the future. Because this book has been written at a time where we've had so many movies and books about time travel, going back and fixing things, and how it either makes things worse or it doesn't maybe make things as well as we have. And I think Stephen King knew readers would be thinking that, okay, it's not going to turn out how he thinks it's going to turn out. So, and that's why I think when you have the discussions about, could you go back and kill Hitler, that morality thing, we've made decisions and choices, and we have to stick with them. And that's why it's not necessarily the past that's stubborn. It's we're stubborn to accept the mistakes we as a species, as people have made, and love that fantasy and our idea that, oh, I can just go back in time and fix this.
Yeah. And I think too, Stephen King was so clever in throwing that word obdurate throughout the whole. I looked it up on Reddit, and apparently it's in there 26 or more times. I don't know, 26 or so. But I think you're right. It also applies to Jake himself as a character, not just the past. Like, the past. There was a couple times there where it was refusing to do what he wanted it, like a couple little glitches.
Yeah.
And then I thought, well, maybe he did that we're supposed to think of Jake as refusing to bend or refusing to give up his beliefs and stuff like that. Like, he was very stubborn and in his mission and everything. So I just thought maybe that applied to him as well.
And I'm going to say that scene where him and Sadie are literally like blocks away from the book depository, trying to get there and stop Oswald. And the past keeps throwing things at him, accidents and cars and all this stuff.
Yeah.
Was so intense. This wasn't like bad guys with guns and shootouts and, oh, I got to pull a wire to defuse a bomb. This was just like everyday incidents that, we tend probably think like, oh yeah, that stuff happens. But this was the past actively like, no, you can't do this. Stop. And I think it was about 4 or 5 pages of just them trying to get there before they even got to the depository. And I was just hooked. 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm going.
I really,
and the car.
In my mind, I call that the Indiana Jones part, right? Because it's just like one thing after the other, right? They're like, it's like it reminded me of Indiana Jones. I thought the past being obdurate was a great villain, right? Like that's really the villain of the book is the past being obdurate, and I thought it was a great villain. The thing is, I wasn't sure up until the end, right? Not even the end. I guess that happens maybe like 5/8 into the book, not to say 3/4, maybe a little bit more, because it's such a big book, right? I thought that I guess I want to say I thought it was his point of view, right? I wasn't sure up until the end there that the past was really being obdurate. I thought it was just he was a man on a mission, and when you're on a mission, everything is an inconvenience. It seems like the world is against you, right? Like Isabel and I are remodeling a bathroom right now, right? And we went to Home Depot, right? And they had brought the forklifts in right in the tile section right before we got there, right? So we're sitting around waiting. We're sitting around waiting for them to move the forklifts for us to get to the tile section. And we're waiting. And finally, I'm like, hey, babe, let's go to Lowe's, right? Like, we got to go, right? We got to get this done. And it's funny because at that moment, right, and I was saving it for this exact time to tell her. At that time, I was like, the past is obdurate, right? Like, the world does not want me to get these tiles. Right? And I know it may sound silly, right?
No,
but
it's true.
When you are singularly focused on a mission, it seems like everything, the world is in your way, and that's why I wasn't so sure that he was actually seeing what he thought he was seeing, And again, in the end, when it really comes like gunfire, one after the other, right? Like problem. I was like, maybe I'm wrong, right? Like maybe I'm thinking too much. Maybe the past really is obdurate because it's just so much that comes cascading on him. But for most of the book, I didn't think the past was actually this active combatant, right? This villain against him. I thought it was that his computer had to do an update 5 minutes before his team's meeting, right? It's just, it seems like the world is against me because I am so singularly focused on this one thing, right? And that was my kind of my vision throughout the whole book. But I love the idea of kind of the past in itself not wanting to change because that's kind of like its death, so it makes it a villain, right? It's a villain. It's trying to save itself. So I really enjoyed it as a villain.
Yeah.
So we know with my favorite part about this, or why I first was interested in reading this, is because it's a time travel book. That's how I heard it be pitched, and I love that idea. And Ariel doesn't love time travel stuff because there's too many things that like. Parallel universes and all of that.
I love that stuff too.
I love that stuff too.
I'm with you.
So I love that.
Yeah.
Because you guys are not comic book fans. If you were comic book fans, you would feel it.
So I love that. So I went into it for that reason. And at first, my question is, how do you like the time travel aspect in the book? And what about the rules and limitations that Stephen King set for it, right? Because at first, I was like, wait, what do you mean he's always going to show up there at the same time on the same day? Like, what do you mean he can't pick like when he wants to, travel into the past? How, this is so super specific. Like, why this particular day and this particular time all the time? So, I have mixed emotions about that. So I guess my question to you guys is, how did you feel about the way he handled the time travel and those limitations? Like, what are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, given the mission at hand that Al had started and made his life's work, and he wanted him to carry on with that, I can see the date. Like, okay, this will give me enough time to go back and check on Harry and everything, which that was one of my favorite parts, was the Halloween or that in the house. But anyways, for me, the time travel wouldn't have worked at all if more than, you know, how 2 minutes had only elapsed in actual time, no matter how long he stayed there. That's the only way it would work for me, because like you couldn't have unexplained absences, or, you know, the school year would start and where's Jake or whatever, right? Like that's the only way it would work, because when he would go there, he'd have no idea how long it would take, and the car would break down, and like, you know, this guy wants to fight me or whatever. So yeah, it only worked for that reason, because of the, or I should say it really worked for me because of that, like the 2 minutes only going by in actual time. So yeah, I like that.
That simplifies like the rules.
Yeah, to keep it simple, because I think when he wrote this book, he knew it was going to go to a wider audience than he normally has. There's going to be people that weren't Stephen King horror fans that were going to read this book. So he had to keep these rules very simple, so you're not questioning, like you said, well, why can't he just choose to do this, or why can't he do that? The fact that he never really explained how these portals work was also great, because you don't get bogged down on that. You're focused on Jake Epping, the mission. Is it right? Is it wrong? The humanity of the story, the love of the story. The only real thing that you get that maybe appeal to a more discerning reader was the cards, the yellow card guy, the green card guy, the black card guy, how the past being changed affected the color of those cards.
Yeah.
So he kept it simple, so the wider audience wouldn't ask questions and would be swept in his narrative. But he still left a few kernels there for those more discerning people that want just a little bit more out of their time travel.
I'm, to my own chagrin, I'm going to say I like the time travel aspect. And I think I know why I liked it, right? And I liked it because I don't like time travel, the verb, right? I think I like time travel, the noun, if that makes any sense, right? Like, the book's not really about time travel, right? He goes to the past, and then he comes home, and then he goes back, but then he stays there for the 90% of the book, right? And then at the end, he comes back, sees what his actions did, and the book ends, right? I like that. I can deal with that, right? What I don't like is characters when they travel back and forth and back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And now, hey, by the way, I've got 2 Captain Americas, right? That's the part I don't like. When you start getting into these, because the only way to explain it is multiverses, right? That's the pop culture way to explain it. And those things, they begin to break down, and the story gets silly, and it just, for the most part, I don't like them, right? And it's one of the reasons why I don't read like Flash comics or things like that, right? Because that's most of the story. So in this book, it's a little bit different, because he stays for most of the book. And I really thought, and Isabel and I have spoken about it, I thought that the book was going to have more time travel in it, right? I thought it was going to be a trial and error thing, that he was going to go, you know, make certain choices, go back, reset, because it's only 2 minutes. That's said, right? Because it's only 2 minutes. He has basically infinite time until he grows old. He has almost infinite time. He can do as many resets as he wants, right? So I thought he was going to go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, and keep resetting until he got it perfect. And that's not really what happens in the book. So I liked it. You know, to me, it was just like a plot mechanic, right? He goes to the past. He lives his whole life in the late 50s and early 60s. Then we get into the JFK thing, and then he has to come back and deal with the repercussions. So I don't see it as a time travel book. I know that it may sound a little bit silly. It's obviously a time travel book, right? But it's not so much, like I said, the verb. He's not back and forth and back and forth and changing and changing and changing and changing and changing.
And I have to admit, that's something I was kind of afraid of. Once I saw that he stayed in the past and he was not going to do the back and forth thing, I got really scared, like halfway or a little more than halfway through the book, because I was like, okay, he cannot go back, like, and then come back. He can't reset this. Like, I don't want to lose this progress. Like, what do you mean? Like, he has to meet Sadie all over again. Like, she's not going to know who he is, and she's not going to know what happened. And, you know, this cannot happen. So that actually created in me as a reader, like, a lot of like stress because I was so unwilling to let go of what we had in the past, you know, and I feel like I related then to him because he didn't want to let go of that either, you know. So
well, and maybe that's probably also why we don't know a lot about Jake. You know, he didn't have a lot going on in his life, that it wouldn't have worked otherwise, because, you know, he had to have no reason to go back kind of thing in order to, and then he had Sadie. But before that, he, if he had a really full, interesting life in the present day, I don't think it would have worked either. Like, you know, a romance or whatever. Like
he was an indifferent character, I feel.
Yeah. He was kind of pretty simplistic to begin with, but like I said, I liked how you get to know him more through his actions and stuff.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and Jackie's talking about how she also loves the idea of a time travel book, and that's the appeal for her as well. And I think that there's just something about the concept of time travel that that lures us in, you know, like a lot of people do like that. We were mentioning some characters, and I want to go back to this question because I know we've talked about a couple, but do you have any other characters that you grew attached to, or you really loved, or you really hated, or, you know, like, let's talk about just a couple more before we move on to other things.
Well,
Deke
I loved
Simmons.
the Harry Dunning.
Deke.
Yeah.
Deke.
Yeah.
Deke. Oh,
Deke
yeah. Deke
and
was
Harry
great.
Dunning.
And I
Yeah.
love the whole Harry backstory, the Harry Dunning, and then the Dunnings, and then that whole Halloween episode, like that whole, that was fantastic. I thought, like, there was that little bit of horror in there too. So
yeah,
I love that. And, you know, I didn't really care for Sadie at first, but she did grow on me after a while. So.
No, I loved her toward the ending. I loved her.
Her character got off to a slow start. When she had the accident where her ex-husband messed her face up, and that's kind of where she came into her own as a character, because she had to find her strength again, which she found through Jake Epping. I thought the scene where they were having it was the dance that was to raise money for her to have surgery, and she wasn't there, but she showed up because what was it? Mimi, not Mimi. Ellie?
Yeah, Mimi or Millie or.
It basically told her if she didn't show up, she would regret it.
Yeah.
And so she showed up.
I might be listening.
Yeah. But yeah, she showed up, and that kind of started her bounce back. And then that's kind of, I think, if I'm not mistaken, is when Jake let her in as to his purpose there. I'm from the future.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I grew to love her.
Yeah. And I don't want to say much because it might be spoilery, but I really enjoyed the kids, his students. How there's that.
I'm about to spoil the shit out of this book in a few.
Okay, so I think it's time I add my little ticker because I feel like
I can't talk about how much I love the ending of this book without spoiling it. That's the problem.
Now the spoiler alert's on. I really enjoyed the football player.
We have been talking about this book for 52 minutes. So yeah, I think it's okay time to get spoilery. So I do have my little ticker on there saying that spoilers are happening. If you are with us, there's quite a few of you on. You know, we are going to talk a little bit more spoilery stuff. So if you haven't read it, or if you don't want it spoiled, then, you know, maybe now is the time to, you know, wish us well and say bye. But we are going to talk just a little bit about some of those events. And I know a lot of you in the chat have you know, read it. So let us know how you're feeling and what you're thinking about all of these things, right? So I guess let's go ahead and start with some of our favorite parts, favorite scenes, things that we might be passionate about, favorite, you know, quotes, because I heard some of you saying favorites. So yeah, Dee, you wanted to share your favorite?
Okay. So I already alluded to it earlier that he saved JFK, and it does not go well when he returns to the future. So now he has to make this choice. Does he go back and figure out a different way to fix it so he can still be with Sadie, or does he let it go and lose Sadie? This is when the heartstrings started kind of coming in for me. What's he going to do? Where are you going with me, Stephen King? I have no clue what your purpose is here. So he goes back and
wait, but what did you want, Dee? You got to tell us first what you wanted.
I wanted to have my cake and eat it too. I wanted him to not change, but still find a way to get Sadie. But I still think he did. because the last scene of this book, so he makes a decision to not change the past, goes back, and he, for quite a while, does not look up to see what happened to Sadie. Eventually, it gets the better of him, and he does, and he finds out that she's being honored as person of the century in Jody, Texas. He makes, now at this point, she's in her 80s and he's in his 30s, or whatever age he was. He goes down to this celebration, and the last scene of him and her dancing and that conversation that they had. Now, there's a scene when he's in the past with her where they have to chaperone and dance together. And it's kind of what launches their romance. And the reason they had to chaperone that dance together is because people that were supposed to, something happened. They weren't able to. So they were last minute fill-ins. And I just remember reading that. And he asks her, he's like, oh, that night that you had to go chaperone that dance, who ended up chaperoning with you? Because it wasn't him, because he had decided not to go back. And I cried a little bit. I teared up. I was very emotional because it was very selfless what he decided to do. You know, a lot of people probably would have been like, you know what? I could probably still go back, not mess with JFK, but still have Sadie. But he learned that I think he realized he was going to keep losing her some way, somehow.
Yeah.
Because he lost her in saving JFK. That was another one of those, I kind of saw it coming type things. But that last scene of him and her dancing and that conversation they have is one of my favorite closing scenes of a book ever.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
Spoiled.
I thought, yeah. No, I like so many things about, I liked his on the way to when he first goes back and he decides to stay there, and his, like I said, when he finds the Dunnings and solves that whole situation and then goes back. And then, yeah, I loved, the parts, when they were, well, I liked all the Easter eggs of his previous book, It. There's a lot of, there's characters that are from that book in this book. And even the car, the Plymouth Fury, I think, was that not Christine? The car? I'm not sure. But anyways, I really enjoyed that. Like, about those little extra treats in there thrown in as well. And then, yeah, I really loved all the kind of spying he did when he was in the house across the street. I love those scenes. Like, there's a lot of tension building, and we know from the get-go we're building towards this huge event at the end. But I like that there were other major events that happened along the way too. It wasn't just all geared towards this one. Like, he had to make it interesting somehow, right? So yeah, I really enjoyed that. And yeah, it was a perfect way to end the book, I thought too. Like, and maybe that's, how we were asking, did he have the moral right to do what he did? And maybe in showing how good of a person he was at the end and the decision he made, maybe that kind of compensated for that. I don't know. I just felt like I never liked him more than I did at the end. Let's put it that way. So yeah.
I mean, to add to what Dee said, how he shed a tear, his eyes got watery or cried, and more people in the comments are talking about crying. I like sobbed. I was sobbing for like a good 10 minutes, like, because there were so many things that made me cry. Like, well, after the whole Sadie thing, like, I felt like to hell with JFK, to hell with the little girl, I didn't care about any of it. I just wanted him and Sadie. Like, I didn't care about anything else. To me, that was the only thing that mattered. And what got me was that he knew her and had the memories of her, but she didn't. She stayed without him. Like, she never got to know him. And even though when she says, "Where do I know you from?" I thought that part was like mind blowing. I'm like, wait, so how does she know? Like,
well, I do believe in souls and soulmates and reconnection. Like, there's all kind of things we don't know about, right? So yeah, I love that element too. That was awesome.
It's one of the I watched the series with James Franco shortly after finishing this, and it's one of the few things the series got right was this ending.
Yeah, I didn't expect it either, because like I said,
No,
I didn't buy into the relationship at first. Like, it seemed to me like Jake was just getting with her because she was the only person available at the time. Like she seemed like a convenience rather than a serious relationship. So it was a surprise, like how attached to her that, and how, you know, you feel like you were on the relationship road with them the whole way, and like how it developed and everything. And so.
Yeah, I think that's why at first we don't think. I'm sorry. Go ahead, love.
I would say I might have the answer to that, right? And it's a reach, right? But I think the answer is Ka, which is Ka, right? Because Ka is something that goes throughout the entire Stephen King Dark Tower series, right? And it's this idea of destiny, right? And the saying is Ka is a wheel, right? They say it throughout the whole series. Ka is a wheel, and that you can't really fight against Ka, which again is destiny, the forces of nature, good versus evil. It's like the Force in Star Wars, right? And the idea of the Dark Tower is that the Dark Tower is in the middle, and then there's these what they call the beams, right? And the beams cut across the Dark Tower in different sections and cut reality into this pie-shaped, you know, flat wheel, right? To use Matthew McConaughey's saying. And I liked it because all these universes, the slices of the pie that are next to each other, share a lot of similarities, right? So immediately when I read the ending of the book, since I had just come off the end of the Dark Tower series, I was like, huh, because they're like obviously they're in the next slice over, right? So that's how she kind of knows him, but doesn't really. And the whole where he was going when he's time traveling is he's going to this next plane over. You know, so to me it was emotional, but it wasn't that emotional because I kind of had that in my mind, right? That they're going to the next section. But I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed it a lot. I'm not super emotional when it comes to books like that. I read any kind of book, but I really liked it. I thought it was a great adventure, right? And I kept thinking, now is when he's gonna go back, right? Like sufficient things have gone wrong that now is when he goes back, and now when he goes back. And the question is like, when do you let go? When do you pull the trigger? When do you reset? And I like the fact that he never did, right? He's singularly focused on his mission of that Al gave him, and he's focused on getting the girl, right? And he's willing to sacrifice the girl for the mission, which to me is a noble thing, right? I can relate to that. But I don't want that to happen. You know, I want him to get the girl too, because he deserves it after everything he's suffered through with all of this. And especially after what happens to her in the end, right? Yeah. As I know we're in spoiler territory, so he can take her back with him and fix her.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And I don't want to say fix her, but make it as if it never happened. And that seems like a really, really good option, right? All this time. And I'm like, just do it, man. Just do it. But obviously there's other reasons why he can't. But I thought it was I thought it was a great adventure. I really liked it a lot. All the characters, I felt like I was in like Stars Hollow. If you guys ever watched that Gilmore Girls show, like all of the little characters in the town, like you get to know them and like them. And I really enjoyed. My favorite part was probably when he's teaching, right? And he starts getting into the theater program, and he's directing the plays and the kids, and then that girl who has the accident. Like that was probably my favorite part of the book. You know, and as a guy who reads a lot of action, right? Because fantasy is classified as basically an action novel, right? Just swords instead of guns. That kind of slow roll, right? I really enjoyed that, him coming into it and just living this simple life. And he's not even like with Sadie yet. He's kind of courting her, right? And they're getting to know each other, and they're going off on these little rendezvous to the little cabins. And even the two guys who own the cabins, right? There's not much about them, but I was like, those guys seem fun, right? Like all the characters just seemed great, you know. And I really enjoyed, like, I felt like I was one of his neighbors in Jodie, right? Like, I felt like I knew everybody too, and I liked it. I liked it a lot.
I like that you brought up the Jake of. He became a full-time teacher. He directed the plays. He saved those athletes from getting kicked off the team. I made one note reading this book, and it basically said, change the world as a time traveler or as a teacher. And I did that about, it was about 200 pages in. And then I kept that was the theme I kept in my mind going through. That's the only note I made through the whole book.
Yeah, it also reminded me that cozy feeling you described, Ariel, like Gilmore Girls. It reminded me of the movie Back to the Future, especially the dance scenes in the gym, like
Correct.
that whole, Enchantment Under the Sea dance when they are in the dancing and everything. I like that. It just, gave me the warm fuzzies.
I think especially for me also, right, because of the way I've always lived in a big like metropolitan city, right? So I've never been to like a hoedown, right? I've never been to I've never been to a
small town.
Like my graduating class was almost 3,000 kids, right?
Oh my
so
God.
the idea of having like this small drama play where everybody in town shows up, right? And everybody knows each other. So not only is it, the whole town, it's also kind of like Sunday church, right? Everybody knows each other. They're all going to this thing. And then afterwards, maybe they're going to go for milkshakes and brownies or whatever, right? So for me, it was just this, kind of cozy feeling, I guess. It was like watching Father Brown. We watch Father Brown together sometimes, right? You get to know all the neighbors and it's fun. And that part was my favorite part. I actually have a note on the phone, so we can get back to that because I kept wanting to bring that up, the phone. You want to do it now?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Do you remember when he goes back to the past and he has his phone?
Yeah.
And he's like, I have my phone. And he chucks it in the river.
Mm-hmm.
I thought for sure that phone was coming back. I was like, that phone is coming back. Like there's like that's not the end of the phone. Somebody's gonna drag it out of this is how he gets discovered. Right?
I thought some kid named Steve was just gonna find it, honestly. Just as a little inside joke.
Yeah.
I thought for sure, like, this is how he gets found out, right? This phone. And it never came back.
Yeah.
And it was, to me, I loved that because I didn't see it coming. And one of the problems I have with TV shows and movies and books sometimes is I'm pretty good at seeing things coming, right? And I don't love that, right? I don't love that I can see things coming. And when this phone never came back, I was obsessed about the phone the entire book.
Wow.
And when the book ended, right? Like the book, I read an audiobook, right? And they're getting into, produced by this person. And, thank you. Audible hopes you have enjoyed this program. And I was like, the phone is coming back, right? I knew for sure the phone was coming. Reading the credits.
First credit scene in an Audible book.
And I thought the phone was coming back. And it never did. So to me, it was a breath of fresh air that the whole book, I'm hunting for this phone. And the phone had nothing to do with it. He fooled me. He tricked me, right?
Yeah.
And I loved it. I loved it.
I want to bring up. Oh, go ahead, Michelle.
Oh, no. I just, speaking of notes, like I made a note because I, at one point, was questioning why Jake was putting so much faith in Al's notes because, how does he know they're accurate, right? But then, I was skeptical the whole way through. And then Stephen King does address that on page 538 when Jake finds out that Marina's pregnant and there was nothing about that in Al's notes. So, I thought, okay, this is about to get interesting because, it made me realize hey, Al's notes aren't accurate and Jake's finding out they're not 100% accurate either, at the same time as we are kind of thing. So.
Well, it's because Al didn't get as far along as Jake did.
Yeah.
So I always thought that was one of the things that was going to come into play in the novel was at a certain point, Al will exhausted Al's knowledge of the events and he was going to have to figure it out on his own.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
I want to bring up two things, but one of our viewers is saying, would you read it again? I would definitely read it again. It's one of my favorites. So would you guys read this again?
I think so. Not right away, like a couple of years in the future, maybe I would. Yeah, maybe I would. Because I think you could pick up more things that you didn't catch the first time around, right?
Yeah.
I think you should write a sequel called 9/11/01.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I would read it again. I'd have to block off a certain amount of time and enough time would have to pass for me to have forgotten some things. But I think I would read it again. And I would recommend it. Like anybody who said to me, should I read it? I'd say, man, it's long, but it's worth it.
Yeah, for sure.
So we talked about the dancing, right? And I just love the way Stephen King was able to connect, so they bonded over their dancing. The last thing she tells him right before she dies is, we danced, right? Or how we danced. Yeah. And then they have that moment together again with the dancing. And I loved everything about that. That they shared this one dance, and I felt And when I was starting it off, like I mentioned something to Ariel about it, and he's like, "Oh yeah, dance is like a big thing in the book. Like, you know, it's like
I
an
like
under
that.
the
Dancing
current
is
kind of-
life.
yeah. So I really enjoyed that. And then I wanted to pick you guys' brain because we mentioned the student that through the accident, like she messes up her face or whatnot. And then that same thing, you know, messing up of a face, disfiguring of a face happens to Sadie. And I know at one point Jake tries to connect those events. Like, you know, if we undid that, then this is happening and it goes back to the past. Like, what did you think of that? Like those patterns that, you know, that kept coming up or that Jake kept noticing?
Yeah.
Yeah, that the past repeats itself.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Past
thought it was
doctrine.
interesting, you know. Yeah,
Yeah.
that, and I thought it was interesting. Again, I thought that was kind of some of the machinations of the villain, right? Like everything repeating itself and just it's showing that what's happened before is going to happen again. I think it was my way of where the past's way of convincing him, don't do this, right?
Yeah.
Like don't do this because cause a wheel, right? Like everything that's happened is going to happen again in some iteration. So I thought it was the past, right? Because that's the name of the villain, to trying to convince him that this was a bad idea. What he was going to do was a bad idea. And I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that there was the overt things that the past was doing, you know, the down trees and car accidents. But I always felt accidents like what happened to Jake, what happened to Sadie, were almost also the past working against them, but in subtler ways. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, well, you're still focused on this. Well, now you got to deal with her, and she's got a slash face. Oh, you're going to keep going. Well, we're going to have these guys beat you up, and you're going to lose your memory and not be able to remember. So it was time being more subtle in trying to stop them from changing the past.
Well,
Yeah.
and speaking of changing the past, another note I made here too is that I was wondering when Jake was preparing to take out Oswald in April, it didn't occur to him that just being there in the land of ego, so just his presence could alter future events. He didn't even have to do anything really. Just him being there, like his, I don't know, his whatever he leaves behind, his energy or his whatever would, you know, that's just enough. Like sometimes it doesn't take a lot to alter the course of history. And that was something that I found kind of pulled me back from the story a little bit. And I wondered like, why hasn't that occurred to him? And just the fact that he's occupying space in the apartment below, like that could be enough of him just being there. Right. So, but then I guess it wouldn't have been as interesting of a story if he had.
Yeah, and he does mention the butterfly effect, you know, like he's very aware of it, of the butterfly effect.
That's true.
He's very aware.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, the scene that I wish would have played out differently, since that's the question. I think I'll put it a different way. My favorite scene in the book was the pie fight, right? When they're throwing cream pies at each other after the play, right? And they're all like celebrating him, and like I had an audible cheer, right? And when I read books, I'm not really super emotional, right? So to me, I was like, yes, like that's awesome, right? That was cool. They you know, they love each other, right? And I thought that was great. The part that I didn't like is the whole section near the end where Jake gets beat up and loses his memories. And not because the whole time I kept thinking like this is really cheap, right? And it went on for a long time. At least it did in my feeling, right? It went on for a long time. It's not like he got beat up and then, you know, he's in a coma for a couple of days or a week, which in book terms is 2 paragraphs, right? And then he gets his memories back and we continue with the adventure, right? I was worried that this was going to be a real problem, right? That he was going to miss this whole event because he got beat up by the bookie and lost his memories. And I was scared for myself. I was scared for the novel. I was not that scared for Jake, right? I was scared that this book was going to take a turn that I really wasn't going to like, right? That I was going to feel cheaped out of this, right? And I was going to say to myself, Stephen King wrote himself into a corner, doesn't know how to get out of it, so Jake loses his memories, right? Like if this was Dallas or something, you know? And I didn't like it, and I was worried the whole time that I was reading it that this was not going to resolve itself in time for him to get his memories back and go do what he had to do, right? And even though I'm not so happy that he cut it so close, right?
Mhm.
I didn't see that as the past being obdurate. I saw that as Stephen King making a bad choice, right?
Yeah.
You know, and that's the part that I didn't like. I didn't like that part. Now, I guess if I reread it, knowing how it would end, I can enjoy it a little bit more, right? Because I know that he's going to get his memories back and he's going to go confront the real villain, which is Lee Harvey Oswald. But at the time, I didn't know it was going to happen. And I was like, if this guy like physically cannot go, like he can't take the ring to Mordor, right? Like he cannot go and do this. Like that's really cheap, right? It's a really bad, you know, plot design. Because the hero has to confront the villain. So that's the only part that I really didn't like. It's not played out differently, but it's like a plot point that didn't sit well with me.
I think he overinflated the plot because I thought the whole point of that basically was, so he has amnesia, he comes out of it, but he uses that amnesia to deceive Sadie, so he doesn't drag her into that, which I thought was clever. I just thought he overinflated it, over front loaded it going in, because it just seemed like, all right, she's had her face cut and this has happened and this, and now all of a sudden you get beat up right before it. It was like the payoff I understood, but it just seemed like it was just a big chunk that could have been either better plotted by Stephen King or just maybe kind of scaled down a little bit, so you didn't feel like, oh well, now he's gonna have to miss it and go back and start all over. But that was my least favorite part of the book, was him getting beat up and getting amnesia.
I didn't like that part. I also didn't like when he goes back to 2011 and it's all like post-apocalyptic and all this crap has happened and he's talking to, was it Deke in his house? Like everything is falling apart, and I didn't really understand, or
he was talking to Harry.
Really like that.
Harry.
He was talking to Harry.
No.
Okay, so a very interesting thing
that
about
was Harry
this.
who he's talking in the house.
Harry,
Harry.
When he goes back to the future.
Right.
Yeah.
And and the world is different, and
So the most interesting thing in researching this book that I found was Stephen King talked with Lyndon B. Johnson's advisors and some other advisors, and basically they were playing the what if game. So had Kennedy not died, would he have done this, this, and this? Or would have Lyndon Johnson done this, this, and this? So he built that, you know, when he goes back and it's all effed up, he built that off scenarios from Lyndon B. Johnson's advisors. I believe a Kennedy advisor. I'm not 100% sure of that, but a Lyndon B. Johnson advisor for sure.
Okay.
So that portion of the novel, while it's not grounded in historical accuracy, it's grounded in historical possibility. Other than, I mean, I thought what was interesting was after he stops Oswald and he's on his way back to go through the portal, you know, and he's thinking, oh, I saved X number of people that aren't going to die in Vietnam. And before he even makes it back to 2011, like 7,000 people have died in an earthquake in Los Angeles. And that's where I was like, oh, dude, you are in for way more than you bargained for when you go back to 2011.
Yeah.
But the fact that Stephen King talked to advisors from the Lyndon B. Johnson administration to try to shape that, because that for me was one of the biggest things I wanted to be a payoff of, is what's going to be effed up when he goes back to 2011. You know, what's still going to be wrong with the world, even though we saved JFK.
I mean,
and I read it. I thought it was a little outlandish, but then when I was doing the research, I'm like, whoa.
Yeah, for me, it wasn't as much fun to read. That's all. Like that long part that Ariel was talking about just now, as well as that part with Harry, it was just like, oh, this is depressing. So I just wanted to kind of move on from that and see what would happen after that. But
I'm gonna second you on that.
Yeah,
I didn't really like that part either, you know, and I feel like it was too over the top, right?
Yeah.
Oh, you talking about the future?
About the future. When he comes back to the future, like I feel the same way you did. Like it seemed almost supernatural, right? Like the world was so messed up, right? That it didn't seem plausible. I don't know how you saw it, but I was like, really? Like now we're gonna have like extra earthquakes and the world, like there's craters everywhere. Like I was like, really? Like maybe we
like
just
I
the
don't
economy's
think it
messed up.
would have gone. Yeah, I couldn't imagine it going downhill that degree that
Correct.
fast. Like, yeah.
And
Do
and I
you
would have liked it
guys?
better. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, no, go.
I think I would have liked it better if he had taken the natural aspects out of the world being messed up, right? Like
Yeah.
you can make it politically messed up, you can make it economically messed up, you can make it socially messed up, but when there's like, at least that's the impression I got when I was reading it. I was like, this is like,
Yeah.
like wasteland, like
It was like
a
he
natural
took
wasteland.
Yeah. It was like that. It was like
Correct.
I was in a
And
different book all of a sudden. So yeah.
correct. I felt like it was too much. Like you could have made it like messed up in all the other ways, except that now there's like the sky is red and there's lava coming out of the ground because we had a
Yeah.
you could have a nuclear wasteland and not make it so post-apocalyptic. I agree with you. I didn't like reading it.
Do we think that that happened because of like the warnings of the yellow card man or whatever, like
Yes.
that they kept every time we go into that world or that past, we're messing things up, and it doesn't just like reset when we find out that the world just doesn't reset, like we're making marks on it. Like, do you think that's
The
why
stars pile up.
the scars pile up, and then that's why the world, so this was his doing and Al's doing, and they even say everyone else who's done this, because apparently Al's not the first person to go through the rabbit hole. So
Yeah.
maybe we've caused this, right? Maybe that's why the world in the future is so screwed up, because of all the times that people went back into the rabbit hole.
Yeah.
And
And like
I agree
he
with
had a
that.
conversation with the green card man toward the end that explained a lot more to me about that whole thing and how messed up it is and how it doesn't always quite reset. And you got to think that you go back and forth so many times and something is going to not be right or whatever. So for sure.
Yeah,
I think
I like
the-
Go ahead, Z, go ahead.
I felt that was the most Stephen Kingish portion of the book.
Yeah.
Was that how the changing of the time and what happened? Because I know things that I've read before is I have not read the Dark Tower series, so I'd be curious if this is in there. But I know it happens with it. The entity of it doesn't have a past, present, or a future, so it can reach into any of these areas to try to stop these kids that are the Losers Club from stopping them. Whether it's going back to there's a couple incidents in it that they're trying to stop these descendants. So I kind of view time through Stephen King's overall arching universe in this book, which is why I say it's the most Stephen King-ish. So yeah, it was post-apocalyptic because the change was so drastic and the scar was so bad that it went and
it's reflective of what he did.
Yeah, and I felt Stephen King held himself in check because I think he only did about 2-3 pages that even really described what it was, when he probably could have done 25, 30, probably would have lost the reader. But I mean, to me, that's how Stephen King's mind works. So I felt he really kind of held himself in check, hit the highlights, and then went back and finished the story for Jake Epping.
Yeah, I really like that he kept it focused on the human aspects of it and the characters. So for sure.
Yeah, and I liked how the yellow card man, how the card kept getting darker. Like it started as yellow, and then it goes to orange, and it goes to green, and I felt like it was getting darker as he goes. And I thought that was interesting. I was like, huh, bad things are happening here, right? Like I felt it. Bad things are happening.
That obdurate past thing again, like that.
Exactly.
This
And I found myself.
And
I found myself wanting him to explain the yellow card man. And when, especially like Isabel had said, when he says that this is not the first time this has happened, that other people have done this before, right? I wanted more information on that. But then I had to stop myself and say that's exactly what I don't like about time travel stories. Because when you start trying to explain it is when the whole thing falls apart, right?
Yeah.
So I think it was a good choice to leave me wanting more of an explanation. Because if you try and explain it is when the whole thing falls apart.
Right.
So at least for me, I was caught in the middle there. I was like, man, I wanted to know more about it, but I know what he's gonna say, and what he's gonna say, I'm not gonna like.
Well, and you know what? He's so clever that maybe on a reread you would learn more about it. Like if I were to reread this book, I might find, oh, hey, he did explain this, or he did explain that, or something that I may have missed or not, read or perceived differently than what it was intended, or something like that. So.
Yeah, maybe I should make notes in the margins.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think most books, most works are going to tell us that or warn us against the dangers of messing with fate, or
Yeah.
playing God, or and I know just recently maybe we were talking D, how you got your copy of Frankenstein, and we were talking about Frankenstein and how Dr. Frankenstein tries to play God, and his creation goes awry and all these things. So I think that's part of like Stephen King's way of telling us that fate should not be messed with,
There's
like
a natural order to the universe.
Correct.
Yeah.
We just
Correct.
have to play our part. We don't have any business messing with that natural order. We're part of it. We're not it.
Well, yeah, and even some physicists will tell you that the past, present, and future all happen simultaneously. Like it's just such a broad, expansive topic. I'm glad that Stephen King kept it simple for us, and like he got that message across without being preachy or condescending or anything like that. Like it was just pretty straightforward, and yeah, I'm glad. Like because
Eyes a wheel.
Like Ariel said, it would have been too convoluted and silly if it was too far into
Exactly.
into the how of the travel. But
yeah. So just to read a couple comments about isn't political part of what's going on in our environment? Don't our policies and the things that we have in America affect the world now? So I mean I think so. Like everything that we do, like we see it repeating itself, and it kind of connects also to what Jackie said about perceptions of time, how he wrote this in 2011, right, about 1963, but now we're 15 years removed from 2011, and now how interesting that would be, like maybe Jake goes back and tries changing other things, or someone in the future tries to change 9/11 from happening or whatever. And I think like that's interesting, to have like maybe a book or that they try to stop that or whatnot, all the terrible things that have happened throughout time.
Yeah. Like
Well, I'll
right
tell you
now.
one thing.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh,
go
I
ahead.
was just gonna say, like, if I had read this in 2011, I don't think I'm that different of a person that I would have, read it any differently or enjoyed it any differently than I do now. Because what's going on in the world and everything, politics or whatever, has nothing to do with my reading. Like I read for entertainment and to escape all of that stuff. So yeah, I think I think I would have enjoyed it just the same had I read it back then or now, kind of thing. Because what's going on the outside doesn't really influence my reading, kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So yeah.
I was gonna say, if he goes back now, like I watch a lot of sports, which is why our one of the reasons our relationship works, because I watch sports and she reads, is that now, right? If you were to do that now, Jake would be a billionaire, right? Because he knows all this information, and there's like all the DraftKings and FanDuel and all that stuff. So even when like I'm watching sports, Isabel always comments, she's like, "Man, all the commercials are for gambling." I'm like, "Yeah,
Back to the Future too."
Yeah.
Right?
Well, that's
like
how he supported himself.
But like the whole problem with the gangsters and the bookies and all that would just disappear, because he would be a trillionaire. He'd be the richest man in the world.
Yeah. So I had this as one of my questions, what event in history would you go back and change? Like, do you have one? Like, is there something you would go back and change?
I wouldn't change.
Have we learned our lessons?
Yeah, I would not change a thing. I think things happen exactly as they're meant to. That's just my personal belief. And I think, there's nothing, for one thing, it would be too overwhelming to try and choose just one thing to try and go back and change. But I'd like to travel back and visit certain eras, but I wouldn't want to stay there forever, I don't think. And I wouldn't be there to change things necessarily. I would just be there to kind of visit people and look around and have fun and, maybe mend relationships or something, or prevent things like that from happening. But like, as far as world events go and stuff, I don't think I would change anything.
Yeah.
Same. Like I said earlier, we've made our choices. We're living with the consequences, and it's kind of arrogant of us to think that we have the right to go back if we could and make whole scale changes that affect anything outside ourselves. Would I go back and maybe make some changes of things that affect just me? But I don't think I could be arrogant enough to go back and say, "Oh, well, I'm going to stop 9/11 and we're going to," no.
Yeah, I mean, I feel the same way. I think I'd consider going back and changing some of the decisions I've made, right? But that shapes me into the person I am now, right? So who knows? And
Yeah.
I think that might be worse because you come back and you're still you, but are you? Like, it gets messy.
Mhm.
And
Well,
aside from
yeah,
maybe some
there's
of my
no
favorite sports
guarantee.
teams drafting other players, I don't think they'll change it.
Yeah, and I mean,
Yeah.
we have no way of knowing for sure if any changes you
Right.
make would have the same result, a different result, or make it worse. Like,
Yeah.
we assume that it'll make things better, but you don't know that, right? So yeah. That's just-
Yeah, part of me would do the whole drafting for the Miami Dolphins, and to hell with the consequences. Right? Like, I want all the best players and whatever.
Yeah.
All right, guys. So now that we're getting, close to the tail end, and we've been on here for an hour and a half, so let's try to get to the wrapping up portion. So, we've all read more than one Stephen King book. How does this one rank? Among all the other Stephen Kings that each of you has read. Tell us a little bit about that, and maybe throw some recommendations of other Stephen Kings out there for those of us that want more recommendations.
My favorite Stephen King book is The Stand.
Okay.
It's a little dystopian, but it's a very basic good versus evil post-apocalyptic story. This I can't really. It's just a great book.
Mhm.
I can't necessarily. I mean, as somebody that's recently kind of delved more into the Stephen King universe, this is separate from that. Yeah, there's elements of it in there, but this is just a separate book that he's written. He's just a great author. Tells a great story, tugs at your heartstrings. He gets you thinking about things, and yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, my top three, I would have to say, my favorite Stephen King book so far is Cujo. I love that one. I love a town full of quirky characters and weird relationships, and like that book has it all. Like, if you like that kind of thing, the quirkiness of the people or the townsfolk in a book that he does so well. And I really enjoyed Pet Sematary too, although that was kind of about grief and kind of a heavy book. But this one would be for sure in my top 5 Stephen King books. Like, I've read quite a few. I haven't read The Stand, but another one I really loved is called Revival. It's kind of like, if Salem's Lot is his vampire book, and this would be Revival would be like his Frankenstein book sort of thing. So it's a really cool one to check out as well. I really like that. But yeah, this is one of the better ones for sure. I liked it better than Fairy Tale. Like, I read that one as well, but I like this one better.
Me too.
For sure.
I actually haven't read any of Stephen King's horror works, right? I've only ever read this. I read Fairy Tale. I've read the 7 or 8 Dark Tower novels and The Eyes of the Dragon, right? That's my whole Stephen King catalog that I read. And I'd highly recommend all of them, right? They're very different. The 2 most similar ones are probably Fairy Tale and this, Michelle. I'm sure you saw the similarities too, right? Like the way the story works out, there's some characters that are like Al's almost exactly like that other character in that other book.
Yeah.
So almost exactly, which is good because I like that character.
Yeah.
But I would recommend Fairy Tale. I like this one more than Fairy Tale. Fairy Tale has a part in the middle that seems to kind of drag a little bit, right?
Yeah.
You're like, and it does take a little bit to get into it, because there's a lot of like buildup. But I liked it, and the Dark Tower series is different. That's like, adventure, fantasy, gunslingers and stuff. But I like that one too. I'd recommend it. The only thing is I would recommend this novel with a warning, right? Because it is very long. At least I found it very long, right? And you have to be willing to commit, right? And I can see somebody saying, I gave it up in the middle because nothing was happening and it was really right. And I would tell them, if somebody told me that, I would say, don't do that. Like, go back to it and finish it. It's gonna be worth it. But it's there's kind of a caveat there, right? I'd say, how much do you read? If somebody reads a whole lot, I'd be like, sure, read it. But if they're like, I read 2 books a year, maybe you don't read this.
No. Yeah.
I think if you are an avid Stephen King fan, you're into the horror and the connected universe. There's flourishes in this book that will keep you, but wholly, I think he wrote it outside of that ecosystem. It's just a book that he wrote, a story he felt he had to tell. He put his little stamps that he's Stephen King in there. But if you embrace the horror aspect of Stephen King, this book might not be for you. But if you like a good book that takes a real, I don't necessarily if it's controversial anymore, but I mean, the JFK assassination shaped so much of what happened after it. It's a phenomenal recommendation.
Yeah. I guess it's like a character study in the end, right? It's all about Jake and his journey.
Yeah.
Sure.
How about you, Isabel? How
what
would
do
you
you
rank?
Yeah, so I mean, again, I've read a lot of Stephen King's shorter works. Like I feel like this is the longest King I've read. I've read a lot of his shorter stuff, Eyes of the Dragon, Misery, Wendy's Button Box, Cycle of the Werewolf, like a lot of his short things. I've always been very intimidated by his lengthier works. I do love Misery. I think Misery is wonderful. That's been one of my favorites, if not my favorite, for a long time. But this book, I feel very strongly about. Like I absolutely love this. And it's something that I didn't think I would love. I'm not the biggest history buff. I don't necessarily love the politics or the machinations. Like those are not things that I love, but I do love the character work on this. Like Jake as a character. I even loved Al, even though we didn't get a lot of him. I grew to love Sadie. You know, I felt like I fell in love with her as he was falling in love with her, you know. So I feel like there's so many memorable characters here, and I love that. I really did. And so I guess I'm just like marveled at like how awesome this was. So now I just want to read his other lengthier things that I have on my shelf, because I have 2 shelves full of King, and I'm always picking the smaller ones because I'm so scared of like the lengthier ones, you know, they're big commitments, you know. But now this has helped me say, hey, I'm gonna pick up The Stand and It. Those are 2 that I've really wanted to read, but I've been so intimidated by.
I'm reading It right now.
Yeah, I've read It. That was a good one too.
Yeah.
I like that. But
so
the thing about him, there's something for every taste. Like he writes such a wide variety of books. Like there's novellas and there's fantasy and there's horror and there's like a book like this, or you know,
he's every definition of the word prolific. He's probably our most prolific author quality wise. I mean, you get guys, I like reading James Patterson and things like that, and they put out quantity, but Stephen King puts out quantity plus quality.
They're all different.
It's funny. It's funny because now that Michelle says that, right, as somebody who does not read 100 books a year, right, I read 25, 20 maybe, you know. I picked up The Dark Tower because I read a lot of fantasy, so you know that I wanted to pick up Stephen King, and that seemed like a kind of easy barrier to entry, right? But then after reading, and Fairy Tale, the name of it is Fairy Tale, so I figured I'd read that. But now, like Michelle's saying, it makes me want to look into, and I'm not a big horror fan, but it makes me want to look into things like The Shawshank Redemption, right? Like, man, maybe I should give that a shot, right? Like this is
Green Mile,
really good.
The Shining,
like, The Green Mile. This was really good, you know, or even The Shining. The Shining seems to lean a little bit more towards horror, which I would give it a shot, right? But it's not normally my wheelhouse. So, like, just to piggyback on what Michelle said, like, it really makes me want to read more King that is not what he's known for, which is horror, right? Because all those, and I love all those movies, right? The Green Mile, The Shawshank Redemption, like, it seems worth it. Life of Chuck, right? I think I'm gonna try some.
For sure, that's great.
So what did we rate it, guys? I know some of you don't really like rating books, right? Ariel and D. But if you had to give it a star rating, I'll start. This was a 5-star for me. It's gonna be up there on my list of favorites for this year because I did finish it in 2026. So yeah, I absolutely loved it. 5 stars.
Yeah, yay! I gave it 4. I gave it a very strong 4 stars. 4. There was just a couple little, like that long part at the end that I didn't enjoy, and then little problems. Like I didn't super enjoy the beginnings of the relationship with Sadie. I thought I didn't really like them together at first, but of course that changed. Like he masterfully made me fall in love with them as a couple, right? So I loved it. Like a 4-star rating is still a really good rating. You know, 5, it has to be absolutely pitch perfect in every way. Like, and there was a couple things, like I kind of questioned how, you know, how easily he killed Harry. Like, you know, he's a school teacher with no military training or anything, and he just killed a guy with no repercussions emotionally or any kind of like I wanted to know more about what happened to him mentally after he did that kind of thing. And that was a little bit lacking for me in that area. But otherwise, I really loved it. Solid 4 out of 5 stars for me for this one.
So I
Yeah, I think
actually
I'm gonna, go ahead.
go ahead.
I was gonna say, I think I'm gonna split the difference, and I'll give it 4.5 stars. Like I really enjoyed it. It might be 5 stars for somebody who reads more stuff like this. I really enjoyed it. There are parts in it that, although I was interested, are a bit of a slog. I really didn't like the amnesia part in the end. Right, I didn't like it enough to have it affect my rating. That's how much I didn't like it. Right. I didn't like that part. I didn't like the part Michelle was talking about when he goes back and everything's like totally messed up. Right. And I saw some of you put a comment on the things that somebody had said that, yeah, like our political choices affect the actual environment. And that is very true. Right. I hadn't really thought of it that way. Right. But still, I didn't like that reading that part. Right. There were certain parts about it that I didn't love, so I can't give it 5 stars. Part of me also thinks that I have a lack of experience. If you read a book that's this long, like there's gonna be some parts you don't like, right? That's just my assumption, you know. So maybe I'm being a little too harsh, but I'm pretty confident sitting at 4.5 stars.
That's a good rating.
I actually last year read, I think, about 5 or 6 novels that had this idea of I can go back, change time, or this was one of them, The Man Who Died 7 Times, where there was a very strict set of rules that the author had to stay within. And as simplistic as this was, the 11/22/63 as a plot device, I love this book. It was not what I was expecting. It had the flourishes of Stephen King, but it at the same time wasn't really a typical Stephen King novel. It was one of the best books I read last year, and it would be a 5-star for me. Yeah, there was little areas where, okay, I don't necessarily like this. I understood why he was doing this, but if you're a book and you've got me saying this is my favorite last scene of a book ever, I have to give it 5.
That last scene was
favorite
really
last scene.
Yay! Yay! I'm so happy you guys enjoyed it too. Yeah.
Yes, it was so good.
I had
so
good. I was a little thrown by the little date at the end, like Lowell, Maine, but that was just Stephen King when he actually wrote it. He just put the date and the place he was at when he finished writing it, I guess, like at the very end of the book. Hang on a second. It says like the last scene, and then it has a little inscription of the date, and it says, "Someone you knew in when Jake says to her, "Someone you knew in another life, honey." And then the music takes us, the music rolls away the years, and we dance. And so January 2nd, 2009 to December 18th, 2010, Sarasota, Florida, and Lovell, Maine. Like, I guess he has a holiday home in Sarasota, him and his wife. So I guess that's where when he finished writing this book. But I just thought that was kind of interesting.
Just you reading those last words, like when he calls her honey, I can't. I think I lost it there. Like,
I know.
That bury me, I'm dead.
Well, it's good to have a good cry to clean out the tear ducts.
I have not read Billy Summers. Have any of you read that? It's one of our viewers is recommending that we read that. I will definitely add that to my. There's just so many, right? You know?
We'll never run out of Stephen King books to read, even after he passes. I hope he doesn't pass away for a long time. But
he's up to what, 80? I think
he's 78 or something like that. I don't know if he's 80 yet or not. But
how many books? How many books? I think he's saying.
Oh, I thought he meant 80 years old.
Oh no, I think he's up to 80 public book.
Yeah, he's close to that.
Yeah.
And that's what Dee and I were talking a little bit before we came on stream. Was again, I keep referencing the Dark Tower novels, but I know there's so much in those novels that went over my head, right?
Me
like
too.
Some of the things like Hearts in Atlantis, Salem's Lot, those books are referenced by name, right? And the characters referenced by name. But there's so many, I'm sure that there's so many references to places, other characters, things like that, I just missed them because I've never read those novels, or I've never read Insomnia. You know, so I'm sure.
Oh, I've read that one. Oh my gosh, I forgot that one.
The Crimson King's the main antagonist in Insomnia.
I read
he's a big bad of the Dark Tower series, isn't he?
Yeah.
He's in the dark. He's the villain. He's one of the villains.
Yeah. I love that. You know, I love how he references it in this book, and and Christine.
Yeah.
Like he's written so many books, he can reference himself in all his books. So yeah, that's pretty cool.
It really is.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, we're gonna go ahead and start wrapping this live up. We've been
Yeah.
on this live for an hour and 45 minutes, and you
Wow.
know, we had to have
Yeah.
a longer one, right? For a
know.
book this
We
length.
did.
Yes, a lot of
We had
material to
lot
cover.
talk about.
Yes,
I
but
think
it's
we
been
covered a lot.
Yes, we did. It's been so much fun. I
Yeah.
want to thank you guys for doing this live with me, for reading this book with me. Thank you,
Yeah.
Michelle, for pushing
Thank
us and saying, I think
Thank
November
you.
is the perfect time to do it. So
Thank
I'm
you.
glad you
Thanks
you
for
got us
reading
to
it.
read this. Yeah.
Yeah.
And thank you to
67.
everyone in the chat.
Mhm.
What is it? 67?
Stephen King has written 67 novels, novellas, and over 200 short stories.
Yeah.
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 That's prolific.
Thanks, Isabel, for hosting and
Yep,
setting this
thank you.
all up for us. And
Absolutely. Thank you for
having us on your
joining.
channel.
Yeah.
Yes. And I look forward. I got my copy of our next book on our buddy read list.
Yes. I need to
So-
get mine. I have not
I'm
gotten it yet.
Yeah, I'm not starting it for a while, so
Okay,
got
we'll
lots of
come up
time.
with dates. So that's going to be something we read soon. Hold it up, Michelle, so that they can see it.
it is The Antidote by Karen Russell. That's our next choice that we all kind of agreed on. So I can't wait, but I'm not there yet, so no hurry. That's what I love about us. We just read at our own pace, and
Yeah.
when we get to it, we get to it. So no
Fun.
pressure.
Thank you, Jackie.
Yeah.
Jackie says this was interesting. Thank you for hosting. Thank you for being here, and thank you to everyone who was in the chat. We appreciate all of you so much. And yeah, we look forward to our next live show when we discuss our next read. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Alrighty, bye
See you guys.
everyone.
Thanks for watching.
Bye. Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you guys.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.